Welcome to the Women Inspire Aspire podcast. We have with us today Chitra Shah, who talks about special education and schools.
Hi Chitra, thanks for accepting my invite to appear in the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm actually looking forward to this conversation with you.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you in the call. Let's start delving into your background. I'm very interested in knowing what are the values from your childhood and your learning days that has shaped you so far. And when you look back at them, how do you feel at this point of time?
Okay, very interesting. So I grew up in a very conservative South Indian Hindu family where it was pretty orthodox, conservative, religious, but at the same time, they gave us a space to communicate. I say this because, this was in the 1970s and 80s when I was in school. We had a large family which had already migrated to America. So we would always get hand-me-downs in terms of clothes from there. We were allowed to wear what we wanted. There were no restrictions. I remember in the neighborhood, some of the other girls had to only wear very traditional, typical, culturally, maybe at that time appropriate clothing. And when I questioned my mom, she would tell me that, I don't think your clothes communicate anything. As long as you are comfortable, you know how to carry yourself. And that's something that I've carried with me. It was a predominantly girl dominated household because we have 4 girls and a boy. And I don't think my parents ever differentiated gender. We were allowed to come late. We were allowed to, they trusted us. There was always open communication. And this is something that I still follow. I have 2 sons today, and believe me, I'm the first person they come and talk to when they either like a girl or, because the younger one is an adolescent today, the older one is already in his master's. So, but I was the first to come to know about their liking for girls. And I think that open communication is something that I also carry to work. There is no hierarchy. People can come approach me, talk about things that they want to share. And that has really, really helped me and something that I've kept very close to my heart. I do want to reach out to people who need me, reach out to people who are in trouble. And I believe communication can solve a lot of global issues.
That's very true, and that's a great value to have. Thank you for sharing that. It opens up communication, it opens up trust, it builds a lot of rapport with people, and it's good for being friendly. There's a lot of value in that. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, let's move on and talk about so your contributions to education and in particular the special education or immense. Now, can you tell us in detail about how you decided to become a special educator, contributing to the children with special needs? Tell us about your journey on that.
Yeah. So one correction, I'm not a special educator. I did my master's in social work, but I specialized in family and child welfare. And so I have always been interested in women and children. It is an incident that happened to me very early in life when a very close friend of mine, a classmate, lost her life due to dowry. Right, she succumbed to burns because she was literally burned to death, and that was my first awakening to social issues happening around me. And since then, I've always believed that education is a powerful tool you can give anybody who does not have a voice or who's unable to communicate. So that's one of the reasons why I did not pursue a career in biochemistry, or even when I had the opportunity to go to America to, for my master's, I said, no, I will not. And I stayed back and went on to do social work, got my gold medal, wanted to do some great work with women, but fortunately or unfortunately got married, landed up in Pondicherry into an extremely conservative Gujarati business family, which did not even believe in the women having a voice. So a lot of my work started at home. And sometime after my eldest son was born, I had all the time in the world and I did not know what to do once he started going to school. So one fine day, my husband thought that I was going to get into depression. So he took me to a psychiatrist. This gentleman was a special needs expert from the University of Leeds in UK. And the minute he saw me, he just said, Chitra, I think you're just a bored housewife. I don't think you're depressed. Why don't you come and volunteer in my clinic? So I said, fine, some meaning to my otherwise boring life, some masala in my life. So I started volunteering, and every Wednesday was Dr. Surendran's free clinic for children with special needs. So, two consecutive Wednesdays, I saw this 13-year-old child with Down syndrome come to us with cut marks on her hands and legs. The second week, doctor just called me and said, Chitra, I think the girl is going through some kind of abuse. Would you mind going and doing a house visit? So I said, fine, let's go and explore. I took down the address and I showed it to the person who drives me around. And the minute he saw it, he was shocked. He said, oh, Amma, I cannot take you here. The reason why he reacted like this was the Pondicherry dump yard where all the garbage from the city gets dumped. But because I still insisted, he very scarily took me there. And 4 o'clock in the evening, when I landed there, I saw two rows of huts that were occupied by the local gypsy community. This particular hut was isolated away from the other two, a corner, a very tiny hut, three mud walls and a door and a huge lock. So I stood there and I asked for the mother. They said she was picking rags and if I could wait, they would send word. While I was waiting from inside the hut, I could hear kind of a weaning noise. But because there were no windows, I couldn't figure out what was happening. So after about 10-15 minutes, the mother very casually, she came in and she opened the door and the stink that hit my nose was unbearable. I saw this 13-year-old child tied up to a plastic chair with nylon ropes, absolutely inhuman condition. The first thought that crossed my mind was even dogs are kept in a better condition. So I just screamed my head off and asked the mother, what the hell do you think you're doing? She very casually shrugged her shoulders and said, what do you expect me to do? My husband ran away the day he realized this was a special needs child. My own family would not accept me. My husband's family would not accept me. I have no education. I couldn't get a job except for that of a construction laborer. And then she said, if I have to put three meals on the table, I need to go out to work. The minute she said three meals, I looked around and I saw an Anganwadi. And I know Anganwadis generally give free food. So I asked her if food was the issue, why didn't you send her to the Anganwadi? They would have been very happy and given her food. So I think the question that she asked me next is probably the reason why you are interviewing me today. She just looked at me and asked me if I was married in the local language and if I had children. I said, yes, and I have a son. So she said, supposing you have a daughter, you come back from work one day and you realize that your 13-year-old child is pregnant, what would you do? I'm like, what? So she said, not once, but twice. Somebody abused my daughter, both the times leading to a pregnancy that I had to terminate. And then she went on to say, what do you think? I'm the only mom who does this to her child. I know another 20 more. So this incident kind of really disturbed me. I went back to the doctor and I narrated whatever had happened. He was a gentleman who had just come back from London. So, like any typical NRI, he said, oh, Chitra, everything in India is a problem: population, health, education, roads. I don't think we have solutions for all this. But I still kept looking, and luckily for me, JIPMA, which is the medical college, the largest medical college in Pondicherry, was having their alumni, for which Dr. Surendran was also part. When I looked at who was attending, it actually read like the who's who of the medical fraternity. There were some of the best doctors from abroad. There were doctors from Stanford, from Harvard, some of the best doctors from India, from AIMS, from Chennai, from Bangalore. So I just went up to Dr. Surendran and said, can I get 5 minutes? Because I think this group is supposed to be the noblest. No, that's what we tell medical profession to be the noblest of all. Can I share my story with them? He just he just brushed me aside saying, Chitra, you know why we are all coming to Pondicherry? We probably just want to relax, face the sea, maybe have a swim, have a nice glass of Bordeaux wine. I don't think anybody would be interested in your story. But I still insisted, and I remember going into this wonderful beach resort where, as predicted, there were 30 of them there with champagne and whatever, just chilling out. And I walk in and I narrated this incident with all the passion social work has taught me. I stopped and I just saw blank faces. So I questioned myself. I said, what have I done wrong? Why am I not getting any response? Luckily for me, there was one doctor called Dr. Nalini, who at that time was the head of pediatrics of the local general hospital. She's also heading the Hemophilia Society in Pondicherry. She's today been awarded the Padma Shri, a very, very reputed doctor. So she just looked at me and said, Chitra, if you're talking about teenage pregnancies and unwed mothers, I at least see about 10 or 12 in a month, and I can tell you 50% of them are girls with disabilities. So I was like, wow, if that is so common, don't you all think we should do something about it? So another gentleman in the group, a gentleman called Dr. Nalam, in whose hospital Dr. Surendran was practicing. Dr. Nalam is also the doctor for the French population in Pondicherry, very philanthropic. The French government had awarded him the Chevalier Award. He just looked at me and said, Chitra, what do you want to do? I said, I'm not sure, doctor, but I think I want to start working with these children. So he said, okay, if that is what you want, I have a space, a third floor conference hall that is free, that's not used. You can start whatever you want there. I said, great. I went back to the mother. Through her, gathered up the other 20 who all tie up their children, told them that, I want to start working with your kids. Will you send them to me? The first question was, is it going to be a hostel? So I said, no, it is not a residential program. I would be happy to keep them in a safe space. I'll see what I can do with them. But I want you all to send your children to me. They put two conditions. One, that whatever I do has to be absolutely free because they don't have the money to give me. And the second was that I need to have a vehicle that picks them up and drops them back, because if the mothers have to do it, then they cannot go to work. So where do I go for the vehicle? Then I suddenly remembered, this was 2003. So I suddenly remembered that Dr. Nalam used to have a very tiny Maruti van as an ambulance. So I went up to him and I said, can I please borrow the van? He said, how can you transport children in this? I said, nobody is going to question me. Even if I do, I'll probably use your name. I went back to my family. I borrowed, or at least told them that I've taken care of you for so many years. I now need a dowry. So I borrowed 50,000 rupees. We started Satya Special School for single mothers with children with special needs in 2003 with 20 children, 5 staff. Today I have 15 centers, 1,500 children, and 150 staff.
Wow, what a story. What a touching story. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's shift gears and talk a bit in detail more about special education, because we conversed over a call some time back and we talked about special education. One of the points that we discussed in the call was about the framework or the model that is used for special education. The framework that was presented was, having three different models. One is the mainstreaming, the other one is the hybrid. Finally, we have the specialized setup, where you have the children addressed in a special environment. I personally feel that all these three models are relevant and required, and some students might need all of the three at various points of time in their journey. And what are your thoughts based on your experience, and how would you structure the models? Do you think a rigid framework like this is required, or should it be flexible?
Okay, very, very interesting. And thank you for bringing this up. See, I see this entire spectrum of special needs, disability, whatever you call, change so much over the last 25 years. When I started Satya Special School, the thought was, it was still very charity driven. And even today, disability in a lot of places, especially second tier, third tier cities, is still charity driven. People will want to give you food, old clothes, broken toys. And if they talk disability, immediately they'll ask you, can I give you a wheelchair? Beyond that, focusing on the child's ability, trying to see what the child can do. Can I build on that ability and ensure that he leads a good quality of life? That is always missing. And then what adds on is, this myth or this belief that disability is a punishment of God. It is because of our previous birth sins. So schools in general still operate from that perspective, right? That having a child with a special need in a family, in a classroom, or even in our own community is not fully accepted. But I see a lot of change that has happened. Take our own example. Um, 2010, for the first time, we had a child who was less than 3 years. He had some developmental delay. With the help of the physiotherapist, the speech therapist, and the special educators, functional literacy, numeracy skills, basic, ADL, self-help skills and everything, he was ready to get into school. We went and enrolled the child into school, did not tell anybody about, the fact that he had a developmental issue, nothing. The school had no problems. Okay. The school enrolled him. He started sitting in the classes. Then where is the issue? Why? The problem came when the first quarter exams happened. They expected this child to also write, to also repeat, to also do anything and everything that a so-called, neurotypical child was doing. That is when we realized that somewhere the schooling system is not ready yet for us. This was 2010, but we still kept at it, kept working. Then what we decided was it is not enough if the child just walks and talks and has a bit of toilet training to ensure that he is school ready. But school readiness also means a whole lot of things of handling peers, of being able to adjust to changes in schedule, about something new happening, maybe on particular days, having a celebration, having first in a classroom. See, special education classrooms are generally 5:1, 7:1, or 10:1, depending on the needs of the child. But in a mainstream classroom, you are 40. It is always one size fits all. So our kids were not fitting in there. And that is when we started looking at what was called a school readiness program. So at Satya, there are two things that happen. One is while I'm getting my child with a disability, getting ready to get integrated, enrolled, include, whatever you call it, mainstream school, I am also parallelly working on getting the mainstream school ready to enroll, to welcome my child, because there needs to be a lot of sensitization of the uh, peer groups there, of the teachers there, of the management there. I have to ensure that your infrastructure can take. You can't expect to enroll a child with a special need without even the basic, this one, that he has to go to a toilet, which is probably a 10-minute or a 5-minute walk from his classroom, or maybe 2 floors down or 1 floor down. So we had to also analyze all this get the school ready to welcome. So the three aspects, or the three different aspects that we discussed about that day, of one, integrating the special school standing alone, and one, a hybrid. The hybrid what will work. And we also have to keep in mind, the graph of children with disabilities is not always going up. There can be just a mild illness, because of which his even what he is trained to do could have a dip, and then he can pick up again. So when those dips are there, he might have to come back to a special school, so that we can rebuild or reshape his capabilities, and then send him back again. So I always think, especially as a founder of an organization which is working, which has been in the field for 25 years, I think special schools now should slowly change into what I call transition schools. From early childhood, childcare education, how do I help my child transition into, say, a primary grade? From a primary, how can he transition into a secondary grade? I'll give you a small example. I always quote, I have this one great example of a village school where we were able to, do the school readiness, both for the school and for the child, the family, the community, got the village headman into it, got the school committee understand disability, got the peers to understand, had a buddy in school. We did all this. Everything was great from standard 1 to 5. Then came sixth standard, and the village primary school did not have beyond 5, which meant he had to go to the next taluk, where they had a what they call the second middle school. And when that transition from the primary to the middle school happened, we did not really think, okay, we thought he's already settled in the school. Now he shouldn't have a problem. He can transition himself. But there was an entire ecosystem there, which one bullied him, did not accept him, made fun of him, was not sensitive to him. So we had to again go back and do, but by then the damage was done. So in India, given that we have 55 million children with disabilities, and that many complications in terms of cultural acceptance, in terms of social strata, caste, community, creed, a whole lot of things, I think the hybrid model, individualized hybrid model. Today, if I can get into a mainstream school, I should be allowed. Maybe I will be there for a year or year and a half. If I am feeling uncomfortable, or if I'm not, or if I think the school is not conducive to me right now, I should be in a position to come away from that, get into a special school, recoup myself, give me that breather, and go back. But there is always a big noose hanging across, I think, all of us, which is assessment of the child. If you still want, after integrating, understanding him, you still want him to write a 3-hour exam paper, and you say, I will assess him based on the output, which is the marks, rather than the effort that I, as a person who could not even hold a pencil, is today writing a paragraph. I think if we learn to do that kind of an assessment, inclusion, academic inclusion makes sense. Otherwise, as far as I am concerned, I am only interested in social inclusion. Is my child going to school, the same school that everyone else in my neighborhood is going? Is my son happy to go to school? Does he have age appropriate friends? Is he treated like anybody else? If I can achieve at least that much, I'm very happy. And that is how things are going as of now. But I am hopeful that with the NEP, things might change a little to the better, but then that needs a lot of political will, and I think a lot of effort from mainstream schools and mainstream teachers.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That leads to the next question which I wanted to ask. That was about the major government policies or interventions that are needed to enact this kind of special education more understood and commonplace,
Hmm.
and how NEP can help in this area. What are your thoughts?
So, I think when we are talking about policies, be it the Rights for People with Disabilities Act, be it the NEP, I think on paper they are absolutely fine. We couldn't have asked for anything better. But where we have an issue is in the actual implementation, right? Um, I think we are still, I've been reading about the census and how it is wonderful that all the 21 different disabilities are going to be recorded. But where is the plan for it? You will have, already with 26 million people with disabilities, we are not even catering to, say, less than 5% of the population or maybe 10% of the population. Education for people with disabilities. I think yesterday the Pondicherry University was telling me that they have free education for people with disabilities who want to do post graduation. And out of, I think, 15 or 20 seats a year, hardly two or three gets filled and with great difficulty. So I kind of asked them, do you understand why? Because we are not even including them into mainstream schools. Unless you get them from primary to secondary to, higher secondary to college to graduation, how do you think they would come to post graduation? So somewhere everybody seems to be working in silos, right? As a special school, I'm working in silos. As a early child care program, the Anganwadis are working on their own. There is also the school education, which is working on their own. And in a lot of places, special schools come under the social welfare, whereas mainstream schools come under the education department. So there are, issues between two departments. Then there is skill training. So then there is another department that comes in with all these complications, right? Even if you have a perfect policy, you're going to find it difficult to implement. Again, some of the aspects of NEP where they talk about having resource centers, where they're talking about clusters, where they're talking about sharing infrastructure. See, right now, one of the biggest issues that I guess most second tier, third tier city special schools are facing is where is the human resources? Tamil Nadu has this beautiful rights project that's funded by the government or by the World Bank, and they have recruited like in thousands, okay, special educators. Then, and at a very lucrative salary, which I really welcome. But then what happens to a school, say in Karaikal or in Nagapatnam? Who's going to go there and work, right? So somewhere the government is not saying or talking the right things to to the NGO. You come to people like us because you need numbers. You want to. Uh, who's going to bell the cat? Even if the policy is fine, it is like very difficult to implement it the way it should. That is because level of understanding is very difficult. I managed to go and convince a government official, hoping that this gentleman will help me implement it. 2 days later, I go back, he's transferred to another department. Somebody else comes in, and I have to do the whole cycle again, right? NEP, when did they when did they write it? When was it made policy issued? Guidelines, implementation, government plans. If you are not in favor of a particular government, it doesn't get implemented, doesn't get the importance. On paper, it looks awesome. I love the concept of the clustered schools. I love the concept of neighborhood schools. I really like the resource centers. I hope it really gets implemented, at least in a couple of states where maybe the central government has a hold. And I don't see that yet happening in the way that people who had a vision of developing the NEP. It has its own issues. Now everybody is behind STEM. Yesterday, somebody was telling me special children and STEM. I said, we have always tried it. Satya had a maker's lab. We taught them robotics. Today, we are teaching them coding. We have not stopped experimenting. But can I multiply this? Do I have the resources to take it pan India? I think these are questions that we need to ask ourselves. I like the NEP, but interpretations are very, very different. Sharing resources is awesome, but which school wants to let go of the hold that they have in the infrastructure that they have? So these are like, practical questions when implementation of the NEP comes up. And I guess that is the struggle with most of us, where we are still trying to, get one hold onto the policy and try and see if we can implement it. If we can, by 2030, implement 50% of that policy, I would be happy.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have multiple thoughts going in my mind um, when you talked about this. But the first question that I have in my mind is about, you know, neurotypical or even the society at large
Yeah.
needs to be educated on how to accommodate and how to treat special children. And you mentioned that, you know, most of this stuff is societal issues and societal understanding of what it is and how to address that. And that education needs to get into the society. Now, environments are not just spaces, as I mentioned in the call before. It also includes the people, right?
Yeah.
So, uh, how do you think this can be done? So, educating the children apart, how are we going to educate the society to handle this properly? What are your thoughts?
Um, I am a little critical about how things are happening. We are romanticizing disability. We are, there can be mediocrity in disability too. I can be a person with disability, but I need not be a singer. I can be a person on the autism spectrum, but I may not be very good in computers. You know what I'm trying to tell you? But what we are doing is in under the pretext of uh, giving people with disabilities a wider space or the necessary mileage, we are trying to overemphasize the fact that, oh, in spite of him or her being blind, they have done this, 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 this. We are again focusing on the disability rather than what the person has achieved. You get me? So sometimes in the same family you have a sibling who is neurotypical, and you have a child who is probably on the autism spectrum or probably has a developmental delay, learning disability. The mother would always only talk about the so-called child who is neurotypical and not about the child. But I think we should give credit to children for what they are able to do. The issue then comes because our education system is age specific and not ability specific. When I say this, I can be 10 years old, but I may not have picked up as much maths. I might still be struggling with, say, addition or subtraction, but I might be very good when it comes to drawing, or I can be very good when it comes to playing a musical instrument. But I don't have a space in the education system. In my household, then I get branded as lazy, or I get branded as being dumb, or I get branded as, somebody who's just having fun and not taking life seriously. When you see this difference in our own families, finally it is these families that make an entire community. So what I have tried, or we have tried at Satya, and I guess to a large extent being successful is my work first starts, my first work starts with my mother. She is the co-therapist in my program. If I'm able to convince the mother on the ability of the child and not on the disability of the child, I have won my case there. Once the mother is involved, then the father, if he is around, and then the grandparents come in. So I have a complete program for grandparents where not just sensitize them, I also make them understand to what extent their grandchild needs the help or needs the support of the grandparent. Once I've done that, then we go on to the siblings. If the siblings can understand, then you probably don't need residential institutions that give you lifelong care. The sibling will probably be the one who will take care of you because he is your buddy. Once the siblings are done, then we go on to the extended family. From the extended family, if they are living in an apartment, we go on to the apartment community, which is a community, and then the neighborhood, the community at large. And this is how we start. I wouldn't call sensitization, I would call it maybe getting aware of this one person whom we think is slightly different from us, but it's actually the other way around. From his perspective, we are all different and he is better. And I think if we can manage to do this, we will probably be able to, you know, change the ecosystem and make the ecosystem more acceptable, more friendly. We are a very judgmental race. If your father, whenever I look at Arjun Tendulkar, I keep thinking what this child must be going through. Because your dad is this god of cricket, every time you came into the field, you were expected to go to score a century. Maybe that is not possible, but maybe there's something else that he's capable of doing. Why are we not even giving him that opportunity? And if this is for Sachin Tendulkar, you trickle down. This is what is happening in all our households. Oh, my son is not doing this. My daughter is not able to do this. Every mother who comes to me, the minute, after our assessment, we tell them, your child has some developmental delays. There are some milestones that he is missed. The next question is, if it is a boy, she would ask me, are you trying to tell me that he can never take care of me? And if it is a girl, can I never get her married? To them, life is like just an answer to these questions. And if what I am saying is not what they want to hear, then they think their whole life is gone. So I guess somewhere this needs a lot of thought, a lot of understanding from a whole community, because any of us can become disabled tomorrow. We are going on the road, have an accident, your spine is gone, you are bedridden, you have a spinal cord injury. That is when you kind of realize that, oh, the infrastructure is not conducive, you don't have people, you don't have anything that you can do without somebody else's support. And then we have 26 million people who are in some ways living that along with us, and we don't even think about it because we don't know or we don't see. As long as disability is invisible, I think some of these questions will still be questions. We can have a number of podcasts, and I will still be telling Venkat things have not changed. It's still there is change. There's fantastic change in metro cities. You look at some of them sitting in maybe some computer software firm. They say they are on the autism spectrum, but if you see behind them, there is no cycle of poverty, illiteracy, lack of awareness. They've all been children of parents who have had some say in the community, and they've been able to push their way through. But if you're a single mother in one corner of India, you don't even have any this one of your next meal, you can't go and take the community up. There you need a community to stand by you, not stand against you, right? Or maybe stand for you because you can't do it.
True. In another podcast, somebody mentioned that disability is something we need to look at as insurance because, as you said, we won't know when we are going to get it.
Exactly.
And
Mm.
so we need to create spaces that are conducive for everyone and treat that as insurance rather than,
Yeah.
addressing it. So thank you so much for sharing that. Would you like a break? Go have some water and come back in another 2 or 3 minutes.
Sipping water, don't worry.
All right, wonderful.
I'm good.
Let's
Unless
continue.
you want a break, Venkat.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Mm.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about the scale. We also talked about this in the webinar. A key challenge in today's landscape is about the scale. How are we going to educate? Right? There are millions of children who need to be educated, and several studies indicate that the special needs constitute a significant number of children,
Yeah.
especially as you said, after COVID, the
Yeah.
need has increased a lot. So this is not something that we can just aspire. We need to have a plan for this, and so multiple organizations can help, which are working in government schools and which have access to the management and government and all that.
Mm.
But there needs to be something that needs to, as you said, put everything together, because we are all working in silos. um, do you have any thoughts on how to tie it all together and, you know, probably bring it under one authority or something? Um,
Yes.
how are we going to address this, and how are we going to scale this?
So you know what? Um, right now, I see special schools running in parallel to the mainstream schools. But one experiment that we are done in Pondicherry and which has really worked is I have gone right bang into a government school, and one classroom was allotted to us, a so called special needs classroom. Initially, the children from the mainstream school would just come, stand at the door, and keep peeping and watching, and like they were looking at a zoo animal. Slowly, we started involving them in the activities, which was all playway, which was activity based learning. We had a lot of sports. We were running around. It was never sitting at a table for 8 hours. So much so that children in the school started asking their teachers, "Can I go there? I don't want to sit in your classroom. I want to go to the special needs classroom." That is when, I think the school kind of realized that if we can make learning universal, like why do we have to teach this activity based learning or special needs education methodology only to children with special needs? We can actually open it up and make that as a methodology or a pedagogy for the entire at least early childhood, maybe till class 3, class 4, class 5. We Nothing prevents us from doing that. If you do that, right, then you don't have to differentiate any child. I think also experimentation of sports inclusion through sports, on a sports field, I could probably have like maybe delayed milestones, but I can probably run better than the so called neurotypical child. And there, your differences just get ironed out. So maybe we should look at, I like what you said about how can we bring all this together. The only way we can bring all this together is one, we have to train teachers not just to come there and teach, but then to just be facilitators in a classroom. Can I facilitate learning? Can I make learning joyful? Can we remove this learning for a career rather than getting into, learning for the pleasure of learning, learning for, getting your values in place. Nothing exists anymore, I want to literally kill someone because I'm not, or kill myself because I don't get the marks. Then where is your education? It has not taught you anything. It's not given you the capacity to even face the slightest of failures. Then what is the use of that education? So can we literally, universal design of learning, can we universalize? Again, it can't be one size fits all. I might have a bunch of very, very smart children in the class who pick up maybe a math sum or anything very quick. Can they then be, asked to spend 10 more extra minutes with a struggling child, with or without a special need, to support him in what he is learning? That way, I learned to start accepting, and I learned to start being humble. Now, what we are doing, no, oh, this is a bright child, this is a dull child. We are already labeling them in, 100 different parameters. Instead of doing that, let's just give them a safe space where there are no differences, no gender bias, no, let the child explore. We are not letting them, the minute they start telling us a story, we are telling them, don't say this. Repeat whatever story I teach you from the book. Let them be imaginative. Let us get more creative. And then you're complaining we don't have innovative startups. We are just, because you didn't let them imagine. Ask yourself, at least I remember, if I were to go to my English class, and if we started off reading one story, but we just kept on adding our imagination. And at the end of the period, you felt so satisfied, not knowing in between you have picked up so many new English words. Isn't that a better way of learning rather than, phonetics and spelling bee, and you're making children into machines, which they are not. Let us bring that happiness back, and all this, I mean, ask me, I think special education has to become the new norm of teaching. Teach everybody the way we teach, with the same task analysis, break everything down, no textbooks. Let's have fun in classrooms, no?
Right.
That way you can probably increase the quality of learning.
Absolutely. So I heard this from another podcast with somebody who is into an organization which is addressing autism spectrum,
Mm,
and she said the same thing. She said activity based learning and other things needs to be implemented early in the childhood so that everybody gets to learn these things and taught in that style, so that there are no developmental disabilities or anything in the future for
yes.
anybody. So I asked her whether it is just for the neurodivergent children or is it for everybody. She said it's for everybody. We need to address this for everybody.
Mm.
And the other
Yes.
thing that you mentioned about teachers being the facilitators, again, this was addressed in yet another podcast about peer learning. And
Yes.
we talked a lot about peer learning, and that organization is doing peer learning at scale. So we
Mm.
talked in
Mm.
detail about that. So, pretty interesting topics. And let's shift gears again and talk about experts in the special education. There is um, so-called audio experts. There are so many things happening. Cost is also involved, and
Yes.
accessibility in the tier 2, tier 3 and the rural areas, it's very
Mm.
difficult to get the experts. So one of the things that I was thinking was to have a database kind of thing
Mm.
of the experts, which can be shared with schools and institutions, so that in times of need we can refer to that and get access to that information and bring that expert if they are ready to come and help. Um, how are you addressing it in your experience, and what are all the things that you can think of to address this gap of experts and also the cost involved?
Yeah. So, couple of things. One is, with regards to cost, um, I don't think um, I have a solution yet, but there are some experiments that we have done. One is, during COVID, we introduced what is called a tab lending library. What we did was, in the rural areas where an individualized cell phone, or a net connect or a data card was very expensive for a family to afford. Like, I don't know if you remember, in the olden days, our mothers were, or my mom read a lot of books. We never bought magazines, but you always had the gentleman who came in the cycle, who will come and deliver those books, and after a week give another set of books and take this back. It was a lending library. So we use the same principle, and we started lending tablets which had a lot of information, videos, activities for daily living, whatever, what she could do, teaching her child with what she had at home. And we have now expanded that to what we call a mobile therapy unit, which then goes to do home-based intervention. In doing this, the best way to bridge the gap of human resources is, what we have done is, we have created, or we now have a team of what we call community rehab assistants, and these are basically mothers with lived experiences of people with disabilities. They are thoroughly trained by us. And when my mobile unit goes into a village and provides home based intervention, the mother is this CRA, the community rehab assistant, is there. She's watching how the special education is being taught, how the physio is asking them to implement whatever the goal is for the next 1 week, and what the speech therapist is doing. The next day, all she does is goes home, goes to this child's home. To 1 hour, she's sitting with the mother, watching what she is doing, a little bit of correction here and there. You have a clarification, you have a doubt. So the mother then becomes a bridge between the therapist and the child. The CRA becomes the bridge. This way, today I have a young mother in a village who is the assessment has just been done. She can't come to terms with the fact that she has a child with a disability, or maybe a child with a missed milestone. This CRA, who is a mom with lived experience, is the one who is talking to her, and not a professional. This way, I'm able to build trust. I'm able to give them hope. I'm able to give them that comfort and that support. And somewhere you're trying to, though we are saying 26 million people, every mother or every family with a disability will come and say, I think I'm lonely in this battle. So somewhere trying to tell them, we are a large group. We are always there to support you. And this, when you said you want to create this database, I think this database should also include a lot of these women. Sometimes when you're going through mental health issues, you're going through depression, your family is blaming you for having given birth to this child. There is no specialist who can treat you or who can convince you, but a mother who's already lived this, who's already found ways and means of dealing with this, would probably be the best person you could talk to. And that's probably how we at Satya are trying to deal with the situation. And wherever possible, I think I'm bringing technology in. Like, I mean, I can't get an occupational therapist, but I can get a virtual reality, glass, and get VR into this one to stimulate the child before I take him out to maybe a shopping mall. And I think technology will hopefully be the bridge for a lot of these issues, and also make it cost effective. Telemedicine, mobile units which go into the villages, community assistance, and the support groups of mothers so that they can, always be there for each other when the community fails.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. And we have spoken a lot about your work. Um, Thanks so much for all the inputs. Do you have anything else to add in terms of work before we move on to the other topics?
Um, no, I think, see, though I would probably say my dream, my vision is if every single child with a disability goes to school, and if we can ensure that community schools, neighborhood schools, special schools, inclusive schools, whatever you call it, I should not be home, tied up, locked up, unattended, unless I have a very severe secondary medical condition that cannot be handled in a school atmosphere. I should be in school. And if we can all work towards that, I think it'll just be wonderful. Even if I'm not doing anything, learning anything, if I can play with a couple of friends of mine, I think I'm okay, and I should still be allowed to go to school. And I wish we all work towards that.
Absolutely. We will all work toward that, and I'll try to help as much as possible in this endeavor. Now, let's talk about what you do apart from work. Of course, you spend a lot of time at work. I understand that you won't have time, but what are your hobbies and interests?
Um, no, I do find a lot of time because I've learned the art of delegating. And I also think that, I'm not someone who believes I'm indispensable. No, I do want my organization to function, even if I'm alive, not alive, I'm around, not around. So that's how it's been worked. So I do have a lot of time. What I like doing, one is mentoring and talking to people. I think the younger generation, it does not have a lot of role models. So, I get a lot of social work students who come to my institution for field orientation, for, observation visits. And I'm always trying to see if there is this one bright spot in somebody's day whom, where they get like inspired to do something with disability. I did not have anybody to mold me, to guide me. It all came, by like trial and error. But I think this sector needs a lot more people, but a lot more people with passion and vision. You cannot come into it thinking you want to make money. So, mentoring is something I love. I like talking to young girls because not like advising or anything, but just to make sure that they do the right things at the right time. And because I live very close to the sea, I love going for these long walks on the boulevard, looking at the waves, not doing anything, and Carnatic music. Music is my, like anything to do with Krishna, and suits me. So I always listen to a lot of songs on Lord Krishna.
So, I presume that you listen to a lot of flute based songs.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great.
I,
Um, So, what are the kind of societal issues? Of course, you are dealing with a lot of societal issues already, but is there anything that's nagging your mind and you want to do something about it?
two things. One is alcoholism of late, because I see it like the maids who come home getting abused. They really work hard, but then at the end of the day, they don't have the money. The money is taken over by the husbands, um, and nobody is actually trying to. We are all talking about de-addictions, about nobody is sitting and asking him why does he want to drink, what is driving him to drink, can we do something about that? Is it because it's really available? Alcoholism is going to literally destroy us. I mean, I'm telling you because I'm also sitting in Pondicherry where it flows like water. I when I'm crossing, I when I go to drive down every day, there are at least 10 or 15 liquor shops that I have to cross, and all of them are open, at 8 in the morning, and all of them are doing business. And people who are walking in and out of there are not 60-year-olds. They're all 20, 30-year-olds, which means you're going to work drunk. And I mean, what sort of life are you then dealing? So that's something that's bothering me. And the second that's bothering me is the number of incidents of suicides that I come across. Yes, alcohol is one of the factors, but it is also, I don't know if you know, Pondicherry is the place with the largest, highest number of suicides in India. And I want to really find out young girls who have been into college, who have, done well in their education, got onto jobs, got married. There's some marital issue, they've killed themselves. I mean, I just don't understand. Why don't you just reach out and communicate? See, we're coming back to what we started. It is also because we are talking less. Why can't we just pick up the phone and talk to someone who will be able to at least listen to you, help you? We are fine wanting to spend so much time on social media, talking to people whom we don't even know, but why not people right next to us? Suicide, mental health is something that's really bothering me. When I look at people, nobody is smiling. Everybody is walking as if they have so much to face. We just need to learn to be happy. And I wish that for all of us.
Right. There are suicide helplines that people
Yeah.
can tune into and talk to people.
Yes.
If they are not comfortable to talk to their near and dear, they can always, make a call. Smartphones are available. Just make a call and talk to anonymous, talk to them
Yeah.
and express yourself so that you feel better and you don't feel like suicidal. Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope that you liked the conversation that we
Oh,
have had.
I loved it. Thank you so much.
I hope that I
And,
covered most of the questions that.
and I hope I answered your question.
No, no, your answers were so good and you shared a lot from your experience, and it's very,
Yeah.
very valuable. And
Thank
I hope that more and more people come into this field and contribute. I myself is inspired to help you in some way, which I will think about and let you know. And I wish you all the best in your life and whatever you aspire to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And the same to you, Venkat. I think it is important that such podcasts, you get a lot of people who've done some real good, meaningful work. And, it's good to even sit and talk and have these meaningful conversations, which I think is what is missing of late in this country and across the world, I guess.
Absolutely. I was on Twitter just half an hour back before I started this conversation with you, and somebody mentioned that, meaningful conversations are not happening. And I said, okay, go listen to a podcast because there is so much of podcasts that are happening and people are listening to it. So,
Yeah.
please take care and all the best. Bye for
Yes.
now.
Thank you. Bye, Venkat.
That was an amazing podcast with Chitra Shah. Please subscribe and follow this channel for more awesome podcasts. Opinions expressed by the guests in this podcast are their own. The host or the sponsors of the podcast do not condone the opinions expressed by the guests or the actions arising out of those opinions. Any decisions or actions that the listeners might take as a result of listening to this podcast must be based on their own judgment and will be at their own risk. The podcast host or their sponsors will not be held responsible for the consequences of any actions and or decisions taken as a result of any content in this podcast.